Hello, class. This week I'm going over instant messaging and text messaging. The benefits of instant messaging versus email, for example, is that it's typically faster. Not only is it usually transmitting faster, but people will generally respond faster. They're more quick to notice an IM than an email for the most part. And also, if they're working from home, if they're traveling, they're more likely to see an IM than an email. The other benefit is that it can feel like a conversation. You can have two-way communication more quickly and more successfully, usually, than you can with a series of emails. There's also risks involved with using IMs, though. Security issues, the usual issue of is the person I'm talking to who I think I'm talking to, or is it someone else that picked up their phone at the airport? Um, and that's true with any digital communication, but with texting, uh, it's harder to combat and control. There's also the risk of wasted time. If you're using IMs at work, it can look like you're working when you're just sitting there typing at your computer, but you may be just farting around, talking to your buddy, whatever. So it's something that is a bit more of a hassle for management and IT to curtail goofing off. Um, but with instant messages, as with any other business communication, there's etiquette, there's rules you follow. And step one is the same as in any other method of communication. Plan out what you want to say, what points you want to get across, and what you expect to get in return. You can make out bullet points of the things you want to make sure to cover in the conversation, and just kind of check them off as you go along, make sure you cover everything. And when invariably the conversation steers away from the things that you want to cover, reel it back in. Uh, because it is a conversation without the usual potentially awkward social issues that happen when you're trying to have a conversation at work, people will sit there and just chat with you all day long. So stick to the bullet points, know what you want to cover, uh, and answer any relevant business stuff that comes up from the other person as well. But end the conversation. There should be a clear end to the conversation planned out before you start. Um, but even though it is a conversation digitally, you still need to reread your message before you hit send, uh, because it looks bad when you spell words wrong or use a word you didn't intend to. Um, One thing that's very easy to do, especially on a phone keyboard, is hit T instead of R for that last R in regards, which are it, it sorry, T instead of G. They're right on top of each other. Hitting T instead of G in regards does not look good. I've done it. It doesn't go well. Um, don't over abbreviate words. Don't use leet speak or whatever you want to call it. You don't want to look like a 12-year-old boy in 1995 who just got on the internet for the first time and have no word longer than three letters and everything looks funky. It doesn't really save time. There's no reason to do that in business communication or any communication. But you still do need to be concise. You don't need pages of backstory and linked documents to back up what you're saying when you're having an instant messaging conversation. If what you're talking about requires that much documentation, it shouldn't be done in IMs. So be concise, just still be literate. Um, Other things to keep in mind, uh, people often have their computer, their phone, whatever, set to where when an instant message comes in, it pops up in front of whatever they're doing. So there's a couple takeaways from that. Number one is don't send a message that you don't want to risk someone else seeing. Don't send private information, don't send confidential information, pardon me, and don't send a message that, uh, if instead of going to Bob in legal, it went to Bob's boss, the head of legal, if that would get Bob in trouble, you don't want to send that message because even if you're in the middle of a conversation, you don't know that his boss didn't just step into his cube and is standing there looking at his screen when suddenly, instead of the document they had pulled up, your continued conversation pops to the front with you saying, "Yeah, I agree, your boss is a jerk." You know, don't do that to Bob. He doesn't want that. Um, but also, because it does pop up like that, also know before you go into a meeting how to mark yourself as unavailable, so that if you're presenting the new budget, you don't have IM suddenly pop in with Frank asking you where you left your, whatever. Uh, be aware that things can pop up on your screen, and be aware that what you're sending to someone will probably pop up on their screen, so know how to handle that. Also, don't leave your IM app up if you leave your computer. Technically, if you step away from your cube, you should be locking your computer, but most people in the real world don't actually do that. But don't leave a conversation just stuck on your screen and walk away, because it's just an invitation for people to mess with you. I once had not the head of IT, but someone fairly high up in IT, who, if he saw someone was away from their computer and their IM was up, they would send out a message to the effect of, hey, bring the whole department, I'm buying us drinks tonight after work at O'Reilly's, whatever. Just to get that guy into an awkward situation, so that when they start talking about, I wonder who did that, he could come back and say, I did that because you shouldn't be leaving your IM up, you should be locking your computer, blah, 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 teachable moment. It was just him being a jerk, but still, it invites things like that to happen. So yeah, it's a very quick and easy method of communication, but there's still rules. You still needed to be concise, still have, follow the rules of etiquette, and have fun with it.